Non abbiamo un titolo.
The only show where we start with a waiting panel and I forgot to turn it off. So I think now we should be live for real.
Nobody was seeing us, just the talking
No,
panel.
I think they were hearing our voices, but they probably weren't seeing us. I think now they should also hear our voices and your voices as well, I mean, from the beginning. So welcome again to another live. This time around we're going to talk about cringe showreels, or we're going to dig out some skeletons from our digital wardrobes, the hard drives, or what we thought was good material the moment we did that. Or did we? I don't remember if I thought so, but in some cases I'm pretty sure I did. So today, like per usual, we have Max Bottega, who is freshly unemployed and in the process of setting up his own video game company. Then we have Daniele Duri, who is principal animator for gameplay at CD Projekt Red.
You're getting there. You're getting.
I'm getting it. In 2 or 3 months, I will remember it just like that. And then finally, we have Francesca Pesce from BlueZoo Animation, where she does compositing and lighting. And Francesca won't probably stay with us for long because she has a problem. Who doesn't?
I can't hear.
So she can't hear anything, even worse than my grandma, which became deaf at the age of 40.
The funniest thing is I can hear something, but only at a certain pitch. So I'm basically filtering.
Is it a very high pitch? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
So we can't keep the high pitch for long. So
if we speak like this, you could be able to.
Yes, I will hear.
Kind of nice.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I don't think I can hold that. So Francesca probably will be just listening to us, and if you want Francesca to intervene at a certain point, just join the call again and talk, and I think we will be fine if you join back, if you can hear us at a certain point.
And if we get let you in again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you come in, I probably have to admit you to the call, so that's not a given.
Exactly. Don't know if you still want me.
I'm sure it won't be a problem. So let's get started. So today we want to talk about the showreels, and especially for animation and games, so that we cover the expertise set of the people in the call. And maybe before starting with the showreel, I want to. When I was digging the skeletons out of my hard drive, it came to me the plan I devised when I was 18 to study animation. So the story was that I didn't really have much money at all, in fact. But someone told me that if I wanted to learn animation, I should have moved to America.
Looks like a Charles Dickens movie.
Yes.
book beginning.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think, by the way, this map represents more or less my notion of America. I thought, okay, it's more or less there. I don't know what happens after a certain point far west, but I think it's where I need to go. Then a bit of research told me that it wasn't America as a general set of continents, really, but it was more the USA where I needed to go there. to learn some CG, because that's where the schools were. I didn't even know, I think, where the schools were. I just knew they were in the US. And at the time, the person I was dating had a family. This family had a friend. This friend used to trade in steel parts with the US. This guy had a steel forge or more, I don't really remember. But at a certain point, talking to this person, the person said, well, if you need to go to the US, one thing you could possibly do is to go there, work in my steel forge, and then as you go there and you stay there, you study CG. And I thought, when I was 18, I thought, wait, this all makes sense. That's
actually, it would have made sense. Why didn't you do that?
I can imagine you so much dressed like, you know, the mouse in Fever goes to America.
Yeah. They had with the damn thing in front. Oh my god! Yeah. and the face all like dirty of coal and something.
The satchel. I want to start animation, sir.
I'm here
Welcome
to start
America,
animation.
young boy.
And I would find myself in a place like this one, and I would reconsider probably my choices. But I have to say that at the time it seemed reasonable. I didn't even know where the steel forge was, to be honest. But I just knew, I mean, that was America. So if I was there, surely I would have found a way to the school, whichever school and with whichever money.
I'll be honest, Amedeo, it sounds reasonable to this day to me. But
wow, okay.
Yeah, it's even reasonable to think that you didn't choose the right way. I think the forge was like a much more manly way of life.
I think the forge would have been a much more manly way of life. I thought about it long and hard, and I had no doubt. In fact, I started applying for visa, and I started also applying for a passport. I didn't have a passport. And until eventually, at a certain point, after I thought, I'm ready to work at night, the guy, my contact, disappeared into thin air, never to be seen again. And I was left with my genius plan, I guess, the passport and the internet at my uni. And that was it. And to this date, I still believe that the family of my date had something to do with it. There was
get rid of that dude.
I think they had something to do with it, but I can't be sure about that. But anyhow, when I was surfing the web at my university, that's when I realized and learned that in order to work in the CG industry, you needed a showreel. That was the thing, right? And for animation specifically, I learned that you needed some guy walking in your animation reel. That was the main requirement. And so I started doing starting CG, very, very, very little stuff. And here's when I started digging into the...
Wait, Amedeo, wait. But back then, that reel, was on a VHS tape or was it already on a CD?
That's an interesting question.
I never had VHS tape. Yeah, I think it was already CD.
I think most of the reels were already CDs. I did, however, set up my computer to output data to a VCR and thus record a VHS. So I did make one VHS showreel, which probably took long. I mean, it took longer to set up the computer to transfer to VHS than to actually do the showreel.
No wonder.
Yes, the kind of magic you had to do back then to have a computer output to VHS. It's a bit like NASA when they wanted to output the moon landing onto a monitor. It was, the technology wasn't just there, right? So you couldn't do that easily. But I managed. I didn't really ever send out a VHS, I think. I think by the time I had something that was meaningful, professionally speaking, I was already using CDs and I was playing around with Sorenson MP4 codecs to make the file as small as possible, because if you made an AVI, it wouldn't really fit into a CD-ROM, I think, if you were at full resolution.
I think you need subtitles at this point, because I'm pretty sure that even CD-ROM is not a term anymore, thank God. But
no, I think, I think it's something like 10 years I don't have a CD-ROM reader in my laptop.
Yeah,
look at that. You could even record that stuff. Amazing. But yes, that was it. So I guess the question here is, how did you guys, what was your plan, if there was any?
Well, I know. Yeah, you start, B-Max.
Well, that's the thing. I absolutely no plan. The odd thing for me is that I went through a bunch of extremely interesting jobs, and I never actually had to submit a reel, or anything that was like a professional portfolio. I know it sounds absolutely odd, but my first job, I got picked on a website. It sounds wrong, right? Yeah, no, I didn't get picked on a website. Yeah, no. That's not how it worked. So I published my first renders on this Italian website where people using Lightwave would post their things. And I got contacted by the guy that was representing Newtek, the company doing Lightwave in Italy.
Oh.
Yeah, and he said like, you're good. Why don't we meet? Because I might have some jobs for you. And I thought this is a trap because of course my software was cracked. Back then, I think it was called Juarez. The term,
the distribution method, right?
Yes, it was absolutely cracked. So I was like, no, this must be a trap. So I wrote him like, yeah, I mean, is this a trap? Because I don't have the official version. He's like, no. It's completely fine. So I met the guy, and he basically sent me to my first job that was basically teaching Lightwave in a school in Milan. And from there, I was dragged from one job to the other from people that I knew. So they knew that I was good enough, and they called me and they offered me a job. So yeah, it's pretty odd. I did portfolios, and I did well, not actually reels, animated reels, but I did portfolios. But they were never of use to me because I was lucky enough to get the job right before the first one ended.
By people you knew. But in fact, I remember
peer,
a few calls ago you mentioned that your main assets, you consider your main assets to be the people you know.
The people I worked with, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the same way it worked out for me as well.
And you can go to maxbottega.com and you will see that I don't even have an ArtStation. So maxbottega.com, I put it together in school 3 years ago, because it was an assignment, like do your website with your portfolio. Okay?
Do your fucking website.
Do your fucking website.
It's time.
I went to Wix.com. I found out this amazing Wix. Wix is amazing because like you can do websites right away in like literally 5 minutes. I threw everything that I had that was looking decent and I slammed it on here. And even before the course of making your website ended, I was on LinkedIn and I found the job that I landed here in Budapest for CD Projekt.
Right.
So yeah, even this one was pointless.
But it got you good marks, right?
Yes, it got me great marks actually because I got a job right away. So the guy was like, "Well, I give you the top vote because you actually just got a job." So there you go.
This is based on finding a job.
Yeah, mission accomplished. So yeah, that's my story.
It's worth mentioning that we are not affiliated with Wix.
Well, if we were, I wouldn't have that bar on top saying buy now the professional version.
Exactly.
I'm a cheap person, so I didn't pay for it.
Tired of this banner? Buy now. What about you, Daniele? What was the plan?
Well, okay. In my case, my very, very first job, I went there and I printed on paper the 3D models I was doing. This is all I had. And however, I think they were like decent quality models for the time, and this landed me my first job.
Are those the one that we have in the gallery?
Maybe. I think maybe not, but you can show.
Can we show one maybe? I think I have one. This guy, right?
Yeah. So
wait,
I was doing. Yeah, this was in Lightwave. Yeah. And actually, at the beginning of my career, let's say like this, I like to model a lot. I didn't do any animation, or I wasn't doing rigging or anything else. This is modeled in T-pose, and then the mesh is bent. Like there was no rigging or anything.
I still remember this when you put them in the folder. I saw your renders, and they were clicked. Not new. Yeah, they clicked. It's pretty impressive. So for people that might see these things now and think, oh, but this is like back then, this was like the state of the art.
It doesn't age that well, but this was done in 2003, something like that. So,
it's still, I mean, without ZBrush and without
Lightwave was just polygonal modeling, quad spinning, and these kind of things. It was very simple, but honestly, it was very enjoyable to model with it.
When I saw this one, just like Max, I clicked a little bit because I remember seeing this website where I think Daniele was posting stuff. And I remember being quite impressed by it. I mean, just to give you a comparison, one of my first models was this one. Not bad, not bad. And I remember.
Is it an anal plug?
No, it's what's the name of it? Stamp.
Stamp,
right?
yeah.
Oh,
of course.
Max.
What can?
Sorry.
Your mind is a one-way street. I mean,
No, it's because of the stuff that on Facebook you got those advertisements for that Chinese website, and they
Maybe your
Facebook.
Facebook.
Maybe your Facebook.
Maybe mine. Yeah.
But I remember at the time I made a showreel when I was flat sharing with you, Max, and this guy appeared in the showreel, and you turned to me. You were looking at the showreel, and you turned to me. You said, "Maybe it's time to remove this one." It made sense.
About this. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think of it, what does it showcase? The fact that you can make a cube and a cylinder. I mean, well, thank you very much. Call us back when you do, I don't know, a torus maybe.
I'm pretty sure somebody back in 1998 got a job because of doing a cube and a cylinder, but...
Yeah, but the problem is that the industry works very fast, right? And I think that's part of what this call is about. When you do your first models or your first animations, you're very excited because it's the first time you pull it off. And maybe the friends around you are all supporting you. They're thinking that's amazing stuff. And so you think you're making amazing work. But then in the meantime, maybe at the same time, there's some dude who does this kind of stuff, modeling, and maybe it took him the same amount of time it took you. I doubt it. I think I was much faster in my model.
I don't think so.
Well, I think we need to give it the fact that the edges of that stamp were beveled. And at least that
Look at
proof
that.
of dedication and knowledge. Yeah, that's a nice
and this is composited. The background is not rendered in Maya. It's composited, guys, with alpha. You know that by the pre-multiplied problem on the edge.
Oh, there you go.
So I mean, yes, it was, and I learned how to compose this from some dude already used 3D Studio Max. By the way, I didn't learn it myself on my own, and I think that was the important part for me of learning. If I had to be alone, I didn't really have a reference point at all. I mean, the reference point would be either me or a production somewhere in the US. So I had no middle ground. I didn't know anything really. So just like Max, when I started doing the first 3D things or 2D things, I started getting jobs. And usually I got called by people I knew, except for maybe the movie We Worked Together in Rome, where I found the ad on the web. That I didn't know anybody in Rome back then. And in fact, I didn't know anybody who did CG at all, apart from the few people who attended a very brief course with me. About Maya. So there was a bit of
But
the
this
situation.
course you did in Milan, or?
The course was in Verona, which is near Venice. It's the town of Romeo and Juliet. I mean, how can you forget something like that?
No, it is not. It's really not. We'll do a big discussion about this another time.
Well,
you drop this bomb and then you get away with it?
It's off topic, but I'm sure that the board of tourism of Verona would disagree with you.
Well, also the one of Udine, because these two characters come from Udine, not Verona.
Oh, but maybe by any chance you also come from Udine?
Of course.
Yeah, for the people who don't know what Udine is the town where Daniele comes from. Because
very nice town.
It's probably much more beautiful than Verona now that we raised the point, right?
It's not a matter of being beautiful or not. It's just that they actually come from there, and then they were like misused in Verona.
They were used for marketing purposes by the Verona Council.
I'm pretty sure.
In Verona, you have the balcony of Juliet, and that's misplaced. It should be in Udine. Let's clear this one once for all. But yes, I studied there. I would like to say that I visited the town while I was studying there, but the truth is that I would be in class during the day, then I would run back home and stay on the computer until 5 in the morning the next day. That is when the computers were available, because I didn't have my own laptop or computer. I used the one of my flatmates when they were available. I did have a keyboard though.
That's something.
Yeah, it was the beginning of a computer. The truth is, I spared money to pay for a 3D class, but then by the time it was time to buy the computer, I realized I miscalculated my money, and I had enough money to pay for the rent and the school, but not enough to buy a computer. So I was in practice there working with the computers of my flatmates. And
That's when you turned into a life of crime for a short period of time.
yeah, yes, that's when I was mugging people in the street. I mean, give me money. I
All
need
right.
a computer. Well, it didn't work very well. I had to work to buy my first computer. It was quite sad. No crime for me. So that was it for me. It was very interesting for me to do the first 3D models. And I remember I was really super happy when I was producing something like this. I was, wow, that looks like a character.
Basically, Bugs Life worked.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not that level. Although if you look back at Bugs Life, the models are, of course,
Not
simple enough.
that many polygons, but it was
Yeah.
also many years before this kind.
Yeah, and it was also designed, while mine was just stretched. And it was based on someone else's model. I didn't even make the model.
Man,
So-
you can totally see how so much stress of this work comes from the fact that nothing ages well. So we need to constantly update the reels and update our skills. It's
Yeah, I
terrifying.
mean, if you work, it's terrifying, but it's also beautiful in its own way. If you go onto ArtStation, I mean, the first screenshot is terrifying. I mean, everything looks super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you even have the impression that everybody in the world is doing something. And you're the only one who doesn't do enough.
Yeah, you're the only one being idle, not doing shit. Like a few years ago, because as I said, I started as modeler because it was just a hobby, and then it became what it became. But a few years ago, I wanted to go back into modeling a bit. Okay, like I said, okay, cool, like why not? And then I go on ArtStation because it was already. I was like, fuck no.
And you found out why not. Yeah.
I'd say, fuck no, I'm not gonna do this. Like, am I gonna compete with this? No. I mean, of course, guys, it's not a competition. Competition is with yourself in the end, but kind of not true. If you want to
but
get a job,
It is a competition when you need to make it into a job.
No, yes. In that case, yes. But I'm saying to do it as a hobby or as a thing for your own pleasure, then sure, you can do whatever, right? But
if I may,
no, of course.
if I may, that's the thing. Because I was back in school and I had to learn new stuff like Substance Painter, for example, or like to use ZBrush more. I think we have this post-traumatic disorder because when we started learning 3D, everything was so fucking complicated that now to think to get a new software, to get a new skill, it's like traumatic because you're like, oh my God, I will need to study 10 years again. No, because now the softwares are so good.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, I went back into modeling shortly, and I can tell you, it's not as it was back then. It's much more easy, it's much more streamlined, it's much more understandable. It gives you much more pleasure. Stuff still crashes, but less.
Of course.
And to achieve realism, especially in modeling, it's easier. It's so yeah.
It is. I mean, I was looking at this Super Mario sculpture, which just randomly popped up. I mean, this is in order to do this kind of stuff back then. I mean, just to do the fur, it would be kind of a chore. Nowadays, there are a number of tools that make fur. I mean, that means that the bar raises quite a lot. I mean, if the tool is a bit simpler than it used to be and a bit more reliable, that means that to do something this good, you need to practice a lot anyway if you compare your work with someone else's. Because the problem is that everybody now can open Substance Painter, slap a PBR shader on a piece of geometry, and that shader will look really cool. But they don't know how to make a shader. So the real difference will be in the showreel when we see a showreel where the showreel is not made only of templates that you slapped on it. But
or they don't know how to make the model production ready or game ready or light enough or optimized, blah, blah, blah. So.
Yeah, I think so. But it's good for me that I already knew all this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure the topology was something like this in here.
That was it.
I don't think think it
It
was.
was probably modeled by nerves, wasn't it?
I think it was nerves, and in order to do the blink, I had a alpha sphere that I would animate the visibility for, up and down. I couldn't even animate the blink. In fact, in here, I think I have one of my probably the first 3D character animation I've ever did in my life. So let's go straight to this shot.
There's a bit of audio going on. Okay.
You can disable the audio in SceneSketch. This shot, I actually rigged it myself. The hands and everything was amazing. Right. And then let's see. There was a shot in particular, this one. This was probably my first crowd scene. Look at that.
Wow.
And that was...
When did you do this? Did you do this before Leo movie?
Much earlier than Leo movie. Okay. At least
I don't remember to have seen this in your reel. Maybe in the TV.
I think I removed it from the Showreel.
It was not even good for that.
Well, the face on the guy on the left is hilarious anyway. Yeah, I don't know if it's voluntary or not, but it's great.
It's probably involuntary. And the other thing is that nobody... I had a beef at the time because nobody explained to me the importance of referencing rigs in animation. So for this scene, I took the original rig of the hero character of the movie and I duplicated it 3 times in the scene. I lined it up to the geometry and I rigged the 3 bits together and I animated straight on the skeleton. But because that's as far as I knew anyway. I didn't know anything about controllers or referencing. And when I realized references existed, I was a little bit pissed off, I think. Because I thought, well, certainly it's something you can tell me in 5 minutes if you are in a school, right? And it would spare me 3-4 hours of this kind of work. So to this day, I'm still adamant people should reference their rigs. It's if they don't, I'm super angry. Why didn't you reference? But yeah, this was the very first short movie I worked on. I wasn't alone, of course. There were 5 people there, and they were all, apart from one, they were all flatmates, and everybody took a shot. I modeled this car, which is a car that is made of nerd sphere. Not bad, right? I mean, there's even some texturing going on. And it's made with spheres, and if you rotate the camera, there's nothing behind it. It's just a bunch of spheres positioned to look like a car, but there's no car. There's nothing there. In fact, in here you can see some of... you can see that there's no car behind.
Well, it looks good, Amedeo. It really does.
It looks good enough for what it needed to do.
It's modeled like that artist that modeled did the portraits by putting the vegetables, you know. What's the name of that one?
What's the name of this guy?
Oh God!
Was it Bottero?
No, Bottero is more modern.
God.
Buffalmacco.
No, what was the name?
This guy, Archimboldo.
Archimboldo,
yes. Oh my God, yes. It's the same modeling technique.
It's the same modeling technique of Giuseppe. I mean, if Archimboldo could have seen me back then, it's a shame that he wasn't around anymore because I think we share almost the same techniques.
It's a very simple.
He goes a bit more into detail, I think, than I do, but hey.
So his texturing was better. Let's see.
His texturing was a lot better. Daniele? Max, I have something from Max which is quite good in here. I think it's one of his first models.
Yes, I mean, I wish he was one of the first. It probably was like one year into Lightwave. But as I say, yeah, I mean, there were no tutorials. There was nothing.
There was absolutely no, exactly.
Yeah. It was us clicking buttons until something would happen.
Is this single mesh? Kind of looks like that.
Nah, it's probably like another Archimboldo kind of thing, but I never modeling Earth. These were subdivision surfaces. Right. And I think I remember I was going insane because I found this Japanese plugin that did this sort of like velvet thing. And it was
true. I remember this plugin. I was like, yes, this was a big fucking deal at the time.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. You could get such amazing models out of the door through this plugin. I mean, it reminds me, when we discussed it, I remember it reminds me of Barney, this dinosaur, except it reminds me of its Teletubby version. I think it's something to do with the shader. Because if you look at the Teletubbies, I think they have a shader that kind of reminds me of your shader.
Yeah, it wasn't my
thing.
shader, but that's the point. It was for back then. It was like, whoa, this is awesome. Yeah, photorealism.
But in fact, I mean, if you had to do something with realistic shaders nowadays, you would be much more at an advantage. I mean, you can open up Unreal, you can download photo scans, mega scans, and get a fully realistic environment in real time. And in Arnold, you have presets. I mean, things are a lot more streamlined today, which, as I said, raises the bar a lot more. I mean, back then with something like this, and this is something, Daniele, you have seen for sure because it was part of the showreel which I applied. I mean, with this was enough to get a job.
You got a job from me.
So nowadays, if you check the showreels of students who really want to work in high-end production, these showreels are something else. I mean, they look like the real deal very often. There's so much work that goes into that stuff. So I think in a way we had it easier because we didn't have to, the competition was
I think we had it easier for the competition. On the other side, we had it harder because it was also a bit of a bet at the time. I would say now it feels a much safer job than back then.
Now it's a proper job, right?
Now it is a real job. Like you do this, and you're gonna get paid. If you're good, you land in good studios. And maybe this was also back then, not in Italy for sure.
Not in Italy for sure.
And so, at least in our case, it was a bit of a gamble. It was like, well, is this shit gonna work or not?
I remember that when I enrolled in a 3D course, I paid with my money, of course, and my older brother said they're going to rip you off. That was the idea. It was a bit as if I was going into some pyramid scheme where they would teach you nothing and leave you high and dry after that. And nobody really believed that there, at least around me, nobody really believed that this could be a job. Although I have to say that in my family, there were people who understood the importance of computer graphics back then. They could see that this was a thing that was becoming something with its own dignity. So yeah, that was good. But they were all very, I think the family in general the parents felt a bit worried. They didn't say, I could spot that by their silence. Mm-hmm. They stopped talking for a while.
Talking altogether.
Yes, they weren't really sure. I think they were secretly worried that I was maybe a bit taken by the enthusiasm of this thing.
My parents, when I moved out of their hometown, they were okay. Let him go for a couple of years, and then he's gonna come back.
He will come back. He will ask for money.
Gonna do a real job, not this bullshit.
With his tail between his legs. And his dream crushed, and he will finally go and work in that foundry.
Yes.
Yeah, imagine that. I could have gone to a foundry. It would be cool. But in fact, I would have liked to learn a bit of foundry job. Why not?
It's a cool stuff, man.
You could have listened to metal music as you forge your steel.
Yes. imagine how like a real man, not this computer.
Yeah,
stuff.
showcasing my muscles.
Wouldn't Francesca prefer, right?
But I don't know. I should ask. I don't know. I wonder. I mean, if I would have gone to the foundry, I wonder where we would be right now. But it's pointless to discuss it because maybe I would have been working in the US.
It is, yeah. But you know, if you then went there and stuck to 3D, you would have landed the job somewhere.
Probably. Max said something, but he didn't.
Yeah, I was muted. I mean, if you were stuck in the foundry, we would still be having this conversation and showing our metal pieces like our horseshoes, our anvils, our hammers, and talking about when you struck your first piece of metal.
Look, I remember, and I can't say this because there is no name attached to it, and it's impossible to go back to this person. But I remember when we were in Rome working at this Leo movie that we talked about in the first episode. It was 2004, something like this. And I remember one candidate came to us for animation, okay? And his reel was so bad that it was not even good for us, okay? So we had standards, although they were very low, but we had standards, okay? So he could not pass those standards, all right? So I told him, okay, I'm sorry, guy, but this is not gonna work out. And so he went on his. But he was friend of another person working there, and then this person told me after a few months, he said, you know where this guy went? And I said, no, he's working at Weta. Well, at Weta.
At Weta Digital.
Weta Digital, okay. And I was like, how the fuck? No, he just got like a tourist visa. He went there and he started to bug them to get a job.
Until eventually they gave up.
And then they say, okay, fuck off, come here. And then he basically was bringing coffees to the guys, or like, doing the shittiest thing you can do. But it was needed and he was there. And then he learned the craft. And
he learned the craft. So he started as a runner.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And, I guess doing this today, I don't think it's, I don't know, like you can say, well, even back then, in the end, it was maybe already weird that it happened, but it did happen in the case of this guy. And then he has his name on Avatar, he has his name on, movies of this kind. However, I don't know how it doesn't mean that now he's like an animation beast. I didn't follow anymore. I don't know what happened to him.
If you work at Weta at a certain point, in order to survive, you need to.
Of course. So that's what I'm saying. Either he stepped up, of course, and he learned the craft, or he just quit altogether after a while. That part, I don't know. However, he put his foot in there and he managed to work on big budget movies. So this is all I'm saying.
I think when I started modeling this kind of stuff, I realized that I really needed to look around and see what was being produced, and that's when I started browsing the web. And there were paper magazines. You could see renders made much better than yours, of course. I mean, as in mine, and that's when I realized that I really needed to step up a little bit. And I've included this drawing that I made because A, I like it. And B, it's a drawing that I made after seeing the drawings of some guy who was doing car design with Pantone pens.
Yes.
And I remember after watching his drawings, I thought, so it can be done. And I remember I saw his drawings, his professional drawings, and then I saw his drawings from when he was in school. And the drawings he made when he was in school weren't really good at all. So that's why I thought, okay, so let's try. And I realized that you can, if you apply yourself to it, you can actually do quite decent stuff with just a bit of work and a lot of observation. So it was a lot of fun to do this. And before seeing those drawings, I wouldn't even have thought I could have done something like this. It was amazing. For me, in fact, I still look at it and I kind of like it. Of course, the design is made by engineers, not by me. So I just need to
sure,
to cooperate. But yes, this was when I realized that I'm someone who needs to see somebody else doing something, and then I have a framework to work with. It's very difficult for me to learn on my own. I can do it and I do it, but it takes me forever. So this was a moment where I realized this aspect, but I didn't really have many animators around. In fact, I tried to make, I don't remember if this is something I did at school, for instance, or if it's something I did on my own. Look at that. I mean, look Amazing, at the body mechanics of this stuff. I'd like to think that I thought this wasn't good enough, but then I have so many different points of view of this animation, Play Blasted, and also I have a technical view with all the locators, and this makes me think that I might have been proud of this at the time I made it. Probably I was, but I couldn't even sustain 2 steps of this guy walking. I had to cut the animation because the rig was just collapsing onto its own locators at that stage. So also it was very difficult, in my opinion, to realize in which direction to go. I think when I was working with you guys, just the fact that you were around, the other people were around, gave me a much better perspective. Yes. Although I think, as I said during the call about that famous story of Leo of movie, I remember that at a certain point I felt like I couldn't really, there was a roof we couldn't quite go past in terms of quality of product, because we had to deliver something at that level and we didn't really have the means to do anything more. So at a certain point, I felt like my experience in that company was done. I just
Well, yeah, because then the work, yeah, it had to be done in a very specific time, and you can't really, you couldn't really push anything there. Plus, I don't know, for sure you learn stuff from other animators. However, you know, even if I would say we had also good animators in the team, but the level was was still Italian level, you know. So none of us had a mentor. None of us had,
Formal instruction, none of
yeah,
us had, yeah.
pretty much.
and but at the time there was a bookseller online which whose name was Amazon.
You might have heard it.
You might have heard of Amazon. That's where we bought, or I did buy the Animator Survival Kit from. I remember I was a bit unsure. I was thinking, are they legit? I mean, are they going to run with my money? I was really concerned.
It was a legit question, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, the animation, you would buy a book from a company based in the US. You wouldn't know them at all. There would be no shop to call in case something went wrong. It was, I mean, at the time, buying stuff through the internet was, I mean, nothing short of a bet.
Yeah.
And so I did buy the book in there, but I have to say that without somebody helping you out, it's a lot more difficult to learn. And you can, but it takes a longer time, and it's very hard. I mean, maybe you do an animation and you are very excited about the result, like I'm sure I was when I was doing this kind of stuff. And for the first 10-15 minutes, you think this animation is fantastic. And there's no way. It's very difficult to I think to leave that state of high in which you are and go back to it and say it sucks. You have to wait a few minutes. In fact, whenever I went back to it, I thought that sucks. But it took a few minutes before I could say that. And I think that's also something that one needs to learn. You need to do your work, then step back a little bit, take your time, accept that you did a lot of work, but it didn't work out as well as you thought, maybe. And see
Yeah,
what
this is the hard part, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, I can drop, like, this is the smallest thing, and a lot of animators know it for sure. But, you know, when you are in doubt, at least works for me, always mirror your animation and look at it mirror.
Yeah.
And your brain is just going to sit immediately different, like immediately. And in Scene Sketch, there is the mirror tool.
Yeah, and in fact, now that I'm looking at it, it looks much better. Thank you. I am re-evaluating my own animation.
The opposite effect instead of thinking, what the fuck is shit?
I had some doubts about the quality of my animation, but now that I mirrored it, I think I was onto something.
Come on. Besides this, like this is a proven thing also with when you draw stuff, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because your brain gets fixated on this specific image. But then the moment you flip it, your brain kind of resets, and then you can spot the errors much easier. And this is, always a good thing to do in animation. And if you say, "Oh my God, this animation is so cool," no, it isn't. Mirror it.
It sucks.
Mirror it, and then you will see it better. You know?
I remember that there were times in production when I was really tired. Sometimes I was burnt out, and you know that animators, they do not blink much because they're checking every single frame. And I remember blinking when I knew there was a problem because I didn't want to see it. So I would just blink because I didn't have the energy really or the
I know I didn't hear this one, but yeah. I mean, if you're focused, sure, you're not blinking and...
Well, I can swear I actually squeeze my eyes to blur when I look at my paintings. I squeeze my eyes so that the image is a little bit more blurry, and it's totally non-voluntary, but it happens. I cannot avoid it.
Yeah, or you do like this. You're like.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
You don't want to see what you came up with. Yes, and so I found something. This was not this one. I think Sketch is a bit slow. This was the first. This was a scene from the first CG movie in Italy, right? Not bad. And Daniele, you can proud yourself.
Yeah,
for this.
I am so proud of it. Yes.
I mean, it's so active as a scene. I'm not sure I would have dared to put this many keyframes in a software without undo. So
Thank you. Yes.
I mean, and it's an attempt of at acting anyway. I mean, there's also one thing. I mean, today you have tools like Animbot.
What
Now,
is it?
Animbot is a tool for Maya that gives you a streamlined approach to animation, and in practice, it gives you all the tools that Maya should give you but doesn't.
Okay.
And it's you can do a lot of things that back then it would take you hours to do. I mean, hours to do this kind of thing. So it gives you access to modern workflow for a very cheap price. And you are so much faster than you used to be. So of course, when I see the stuff people animate today, and I know that there is an Animbot behind, that doesn't take away from the quality of these people, these artists.
No,
but
of course not.
at the same time, it means that these tools are making the job a lot faster. And that's what Max was saying at the beginning. The tools are so streamlined that a lot of things, you can even think of doing certain things just because you know you can in the time you have.
One thing besides the tool that this made me think about it, the speed of the software and Maya in general. Like I remember, I don't know, maybe until 10 years ago, I had to play blast anything if I wanted to see real time of what I was working on, right? And this just sucks. Like the difference of not having to press play blast and waiting and you just press play and seeing real time what you just animated is huge. It's like
And your animation is so much better when you can do it without play blasting.
Yes.
I mean, I take every play blast as a personal defeat.
It kind of is. It kind of is. Yes.
Yeah, and when I worked in visual effects, I remember I was, I don't know, I was stumped because visual effects was sold to me as this very technical machine. And the rigs were going so slow because the problem with visual effects is that sometimes you are down to animate the tendons. So the rigs, they have a level of details that you don't have anywhere else. So everything becomes super slow and there's no way to see your animation in real time. I mean, I remember there were people who took a nap while doing a play blast.
Oh, God.
Yeah, because maybe the play blast was going at 1 frame per second.
This is fucking. But don't you have different rigs based on the level of?
It depends on the production. I think now it's much better. I think, for instance, the Lion King from MPC, if you hear the rumors, had much more streamlined rigs, much better performing. But I worked on movies where the low resolution rigs maybe didn't have facials at all. So yes, you can go real time, but you cannot see what you're animating. Or you can go slow, but then you wait for the play blast. So that was, in my opinion, one of the party breakers of the visual effects at the time. I think the visual effects industry just didn't have the technology yet to make real-time rigs. Having said that, I'm not sure how much truth there is to it. As in, was it not possible? I don't think we know for sure. Although it's true that the computers were slower. So I mean, there's
but even today, for me, it's not uncommon sometimes to pick up a rig and done in Maya and say, what the fuck is this super slow thing? And it said, why is it slow in 2021, right?
Yeah, exactly. I have 64 gigabytes of RAM, an RTX with, I don't know how many gigabytes of RAM.
And it's playing like Lightwave in 2004, right?
Yeah, and it's still going super slow. And then I watched tutorials about profiling in Maya, and which tells you which part of the rig is low and so forth.
Oh, God, the profiling, you do it in games to find out if it's...
Well, now you do it.
Yes. Now the editing is retarded. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, but it makes sense because if you're working in an organized production, you want to know that the animators can play their animation.
I mean, it makes sense on that. You're right. I mean, I'm saying that. Okay, go on.
I mean, you're saying why do we even need that?
Yes.
The thing is that, like, do you remember 3D Studio Max has a deformer stack that contains stuff from 20, 30 years ago. And it's kept there for I don't know whether for the mental condition of someone or for retrocompatibility. Maya is very similar. It has a lot of things that are still there and you can still do. And if you rig in a certain way, you're essentially killing performance. So the profiler is needed, in my opinion, because this way people can actually measure the impact of their rig. At the same time, I see games moving thousands, millions of polygons per frame, and of course they are super optimized, of course, but still, in a skin cluster and some polygons and maybe some blend shapes, can it really be so slow? I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, whenever I animate in Maya and I feel like I have to do a play blast, I am really. And then I tried Blender and I realized that even Blender is not that fast in terms of play blasting. And I was really surprised. I thought, it's so new.
And they thought to get away with it.
Yeah, but I think there must be something we don't know about the philosophy of coding. There is a question. So nowadays, what's essential to have in your animation portfolio? Acting, lip sync. I think we can show a good portfolio. Why not? I mean, there's a question online that they want to know what to include beyond the 3D stamp model. I think the 3D stamp model is a must. Every good animation showreel should start and close with a stamp. Otherwise, why you even bother? But I've prepared a showreel in here, or rather, Daniele has prepared it, because it would be unjust to say I did. And I'm going to play through it because I think this is so insightful as a showreel. So let's play through it and let's have a look at this.
All right. Can we comment on top, right? Yeah, let's.
I will start presenting.
We can talk on top.
And I will mute everybody, so we will hear it without the music, which is a bit of a shame because
okay.
But I will play through it. So this is an animation showreel. It opens up with 2D animation. You may say, well, this animation is very simple, but the thing which I think really works in here is that I want to see what happens next. So this character is doing something. So she's clicking on acting, and now we have 3D characters, and now I'm aware that this is a showreel in which the animator is going to show us different takes on different skills that are necessary to animation, in this case, acting. So this person is doing deformed cartoony animation, then they're going to show us a shot of body mechanics, then we go back to 2D animation, we have some creative work with cameras, and with staging. I mean, there's also editing in this showreel.
There is so much in this showreel. It's nuts.
This showreel is going to break the party for any animator who wants to animate after this, I think, because right now we're watching a short movie. It's not anymore a showreel.
Yeah, I was about to say this is crafted on purpose to actually show skills. It's not a sample of previous jobs, isn't it?
No. This is a student reel. So this girl did like a school, and then this is her school showreel.
This is her school showreel,
which is fucking nuts.
Yes, I mean the single shots do not have maybe the complexity and refinement of, I don't know, a shot from Disney's Tangled. They are pretty short, but I think that's why this person was able to do the reel, because if they made very long shots, then of course they would have to clean this reel to such degree that it would be impossible to build a reel like this one. And I think there are so many good lessons to be learned in here. I mean, I wish I had a showreel like this one to begin with, and B, you know how the recruiters always say, we watch the first 10 seconds of a showreel, and if they're not good, we don't even go forward. But hey, I mean, this is forcing you to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's solving the problem at the root. You said you're not going to watch it all. Well, watch me as I make you. And I think this is a win-win. So the question was acting, lip sync, pantomime, only essential things. I think nowadays you probably want a bit of everything. The only thing that is missing in this showreel is creature animation. I mean, there is no visual effects animation in this showreel. There's no creature animation, but I think
However, I think this girl wants to. I mean, this reel is made to apply in a cartoon studio.
I think so, and
so
I was getting there. Daniele is beating me to that.
So, sorry.
No, don't worry. I mean, you're right. What am I even talking about?
Sure, come on. Okay, don't get it.
No, it's you're right. I mean, I'm not joking. Daniele is making an excellent point. You should craft a showreel that is a showreel which will, and I was about to say empower, but I dislike this word now because it's so played out.
This is a bit overused,
yeah, you should make a showreel that opens you the door to the stuff you want to do. I remember one of the first things I learned about showreels when I was researching. There was some dude writing online saying, remember, do not put in showreels stuff you're good at but you don't want to do. Because if you're good at doing, I don't know, effects, but you hate that, you will be paid even very well to do something you hate for the best part of your day, every day, 4 years. So
until you die.
Until you die or you retire. So the question was, are you going to want to do the stuff you don't like even if they pay you for it, or do you want to do the stuff you like instead? So this person probably didn't think much of creature animation and crafted a showreel that was devoted to bring her to character animation. And I mean, and not only that, I mean, this showreel represents the fact that this person can direct, edit, storyboard, 2D animate. These are the skills of a director, of an animation director.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised to a few years from now to find this person in a senior position already, or maybe even directing. I wouldn't be surprised at all, in fact. And in fact, somebody's asking in chat if we can share the link, and here's the link to the showreel. I think it's a great showreel. The name of the person is Monica Hegert, and it's probably one of the best showreels I've seen in years. And I wouldn't say in terms of quality of animation per se, but in terms of
although it is pretty high, let's not. It's
pretty high, it's pretty high, but I think the strength of it is the product.
Overall, it's a complete package. Like it's not like a montage of clips or
And I think it's also showcasing different software, because if I look at this, these guys are Maya rigs, but this girl is in Blender. Oh, not this one.
Oh, how can you know that?
How do you know, Amedeo?
Look at this show. Let's go.
No, because I know it's a free rig from Blender. You can download it.
Okay.
So I know my ground, guys. So
I really don't.
So I mean, anybody who has some knowledge of the animation software not for games, will realize that this person can animate in Maya and Blender. Although now I'm asking myself, did they maybe rig everything in Blender? Maybe they took the model. So it's possible that this person, I sent the wrong reel out. It's possible that this person used Rigify Blender to just grab the models from Maya and just rig them in Blender. Because I know that the school is Pepe Land. Is that the name of the school? Yeah, Pepe School Land. And I know that they do a lot of Blender there. So maybe they just ported the models and rigged them in Blender. So maybe this is done entirely in Blender. We will never know until we go to her website.
Where is this school? Is it in London?
It's in Madrid, I think. It's a Spanish school.
Right.
They did quite a lot of good stuff. This is the website, the right website. So I don't know if there is no explanation of the software that this person used. I wouldn't bother. In this particular case, the fact that the person did not include the software is not even a problem for me. I mean, the showreel is so convincing. Anybody who had the constants and the dedication to build this showreel really does not need any introduction, I think. Unfortunately, I can't check this person's showreel LinkedIn, because in the LinkedIn maybe there is the software that this person uses. But yeah, this was a very good reel, since we were bragging about our bad work, right? This is probably the only animation webcast where people brag, where the hosts are bragging about their bad work, how bad they are, right? So
Yeah.
we are unique in that respect, maybe. Who knows? So this was, I think this showreel contains a bit of everything, and it contains body mechanics, it contains acting, and it contains 2D animation. Now, it is not mandatory to have 2D animation, although if you have 2D animation in or some nice drawings with nice line of action, then we know that you can, you can do thumbnails, you can plan your shots without wasting time in 3D. That's, I mean, and that's not the thing. We said that the software makes things a lot faster now, but the truth is that you still need to plan, in my opinion, on paper or digital paper before you go into the 3D software. Unless it's something, unless you are going to perform an animation you do really well. Maybe if you're performing, I don't know, running cycles for a video game, Daniele, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't need that much planning as if you were...
I mean, no, it's like a different kind, but yeah.
How does the planning differ?
Well, I don't know now. Maybe it's a bit of a bigger topic, but
okay. Let's
no,
not
I mean,
talk
sure,
about...
of course, you can thumbnail, but you know, it depends. If you're doing cycles and these things, you maybe just go straight and do the animation.
I would imagine you would be at least tempted to go straight into the animation, especially if it's not a hero character.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I mean, the thing in games in general is like, it's good to do this kind of pre-planning. However, there is one rule that is always, you should show your animations from the game, okay? This is not always possible, but is always encouraged, okay? That means that, you know, one animation that looks decent in Maya, even if you check, if you go with the correct camera and everything similar to the game, then in the game it's gonna always feel a bit different. So it's more important to do something rough and then bring it into the game and then judge it from there.
I guess, especially if it's gameplay animation.
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, we're talking about gameplay animation.
Yeah. Because I mean, in gameplay animation, I think, of course, I don't know much about gameplay animation apart from the consumer perspective, the one playing it, because I don't really work in games that much. I'm working on a game now, but my experience is fairly limited anyway. So one of the things of gameplay animation from the player's perspective, at the personal level, is that it can really make a difference in the way you feel the character is reacting in game. Whereas, and if you make a in-game animation which is very slow to start, has a very long anticipation, the player is sitting there waiting for the character to perform the action.
Yeah. Basically, the animation shouldn't get in the way of the player, right? It shouldn't prevent the player to do things, but it should, you know, be responsive and
not intrusive.
Not intrusive. Now, if the player has to wait for your animation to do something, there is something wrong there. Okay. Of course, there are some exceptions to this rule, but in general, not that many. I remember, for example, one thing when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and it's like a very animated game, meaning they animated so many things, and at the very beginning, they animated like the character opening, every time he would pick up an item, he would open his bag and put this item in the bag and close the damn bag, right? And it was very nicely crafted animation and detail. However, the players, after 10 minutes of this, they started to hate it because it just takes way too long, right?
You're waiting for your character
you're just waiting and looking at him to do similar animation all the time. I mean, and they patched it pretty soon, I think, meaning they just removed it with a much shorter action.
Which was, I think it was a problem. I remember the first Tomb Raiders, the character had to position itself in a place before leaning and grabbing anything. So you had to wait for the character to sit, to stand in the right position, while maybe there was a wolf trying to kill you.
Well, I mean, this kind of way of playing the animation is still used today. However, there are faster ways to do it, and Anyway.
In the meantime, we are watching a gameplay animation showreel from a gentleman named Levi Guiders. Am I pronouncing this thing correctly?
Yeah, it's Levente Guide.
No, wait.
No.
This is not the right person.
Another guy. No,
Is it Jonathan Collin?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
So Jonathan Collin, I'm going to paste the link in the chat as well. So this is this what you would call a typical gameplay showreel?
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is what I would like to see for an application of a gameplay animator, because so this reel has a lot of basic things. Basic not in the sense of simple, but the basic meaning locomotion of the character, jumps, vaulting over items, idle animations, attacks, and this is the core of of this game in this case. But many games will require this kind of animations, and they are crafted very well. And the important thing is, as you see now, it is showing the character playing the animations one after the other, using the state machine that, I don't know, maybe he set up the state machine, maybe another guy set it up. This, it doesn't matter, but they flow really well. And this is such an important thing to have. It's not, it doesn't only count the single animation, because you can also do a nice run, but it has to blend well with the rest of the animations. And when I say blend well, like for example, if for even an idle pose, if the idle pose was I don't know, more accentuated than this one, or it was having the right foot forward instead of the left foot forward, every time it stops, he would have to adjust himself. Yes. And so this thing, it's small things, but they will break the flow when you play. So
I guess we can, sorry to interrupt, but I guess we can say that the artistry in gameplay animation is more hidden than it would be on a Disney movie, if you think of it.
Well, it is much more. Actually, the thing that I say is like, I say if you do a good job, your animation won't be noticed, which is, it's not a sad thing to say. But
I'm sure a lot of people would not be happy.
Then come on, then these animations are cool, and then the character looks cool, right? Because it's moving in this way. However, the animations are not popping up that you were like, oh my God, I'm focused on this. That is so distracting that I have to, look at it.
Yeah, you're not focusing on the performance. You're still focusing on the game. Yes. I mean, and probably this means this is not a job for everybody, because some people.
It isn't.
It isn't.
I can assure you that.
And then there's one thing I noticed, and I remember I anticipated this question, because I work a lot with, and I talk a lot with people who do series, feature films, and they always say your showreel shouldn't be longer than 1 minute. 1 minute is more than enough to judge a good showreel. But I mean, this gameplay showreel is going on for 5 minutes. What do you think of this thing?
Amazing. Okay. I had this issue happening to me in some applications that I did in the past, where I was also coming a bit from, not movie industry, but I was doing TV series. I was doing these things, with these small movies. We worked together in Germany with you, Amedeo. Mm-hmm. And anyway, this rule of keeping the reel short was true. It's still true in that sense. However, when I was doing this also with the games, and I applied to a few companies, and they told me, cool, but it's a bit brief. Did you only work on these things?
Is this all you can show us?
Yeah, is this all? And then since then, and a few companies pointed me this. So I understood, and actually myself, I'm asking now for like a longer reel, because I want to see this, what this guy is showing. If he showed me only one clip, it would be good. However, I see how much work he did I see the detail of the work he did. I don't know, I guess for for your eye that you say, oh, okay, but this literally just running, changing weapon.
Yeah.
He did it one time. I know he can do it, right?
Yeah, from my point of view, I mean, from say a visual effects point of view or a serious point of view, people would say, I get it. You can make people walk and run. Now, can we see something else? But I think what visual effects and TV series don't necessarily need to evaluate is the flow of these events.
Yes. So this is so important to see how these actions that he animated flow into each other. And even if actually this game was very much not successful at the release, but because of gameplay problems, I didn't play it, but I know he didn't get a good score. However, the animations this guy did, they look very good in my opinion.
They look very solid.
Yes, I would give him a job any day.
I would probably beg him to teach me how to do gameplay animation, especially now. So, and this was for gameplay animation. I think Max is the only one who didn't discuss the modeling showreel, and I think it's probably a good idea to let him talk about modeling showreels, or probably the lack thereof. What do you say, Max?
Let's go. Today it's quite rare to stumble into a modeling showreel in the sense of getting an animation, because everybody except me, I guess, has a ArtStation profile where they store all the stuff that they did for in the previous job, or what they did as a test or as a hobby. It's basically the standard. So whenever you receive an application from somebody, there's usually a link to ArtStation, because why to put 300 megabytes of pictures if you can just put a link, right? So and plus in modeling, 3D modeling, it's is there somebody has a very high noise coming from outside? It's probably yeah, okay.
I can mute my microphone.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. So what's important is basically stills. Animation or turnaround are not really that important. So the point of a reel is not as important as for animation. We're now looking at Levi Gaido's ArtStation page. Levi is one of my ex-colleagues in Treehouse Ninjas. He's a super talented guy. And I picked his profile because he has worked on shitloads of projects. You can see it from the front page. It's got stuff from the first Assassin's Creed, Wolfenstein, The Witcher, Last Guardian. So he worked for a company here in Budapest, called Digic Pictures. They mostly do cinematics for games. Yeah, it's a gigantic company. They do probably most of the cinematics from most AAA games. Let's go back to Levi's page, please. So what he has is it's a very wide portfolio. But let's check, if you can, please, the Wolfenstein. Yes. So what we see here is that Levi put together a collection of screenshots from location he worked on. Usually these locations are extremely big and cumbersome in terms of modeling and set dressing. So what happens and what it does at the end of it is to display specifically what he worked on. Can you get to the bottom of it?
Let's get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff. Is this the bottom of it? Or
That's the bottom.
Yeah, then try the other one, the other Wolfenstein. Because that's something that I wanted to talk about. Because it's always very difficult when you see something like this. I mean, you can see that the person is extremely talented, because otherwise they won't be working in something like this.
Ah, there you go.
But yeah, it's hard to tell what they specifically did. Yeah. So it's great to show what your piece looks like in the environment or in the set that you worked on.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. Especially like if you do like a school project and you're out of school and then you need to show what your final project was. Usually it's a team effort. It's not a single person doing it. So show it, but also like isolate what you did to explain exactly what your contribution to it was. So now we see from Levi that like the exact asset he worked on. And this is a quite ongoing trend in the first 4 or 5 projects he shows. And it's super useful. You can see how versatile he is, you can see how precise he is, and you can see how good his assets look in the environment. If you go to the more old stuff, the stuff that he did for Digic, though, it's basically just cinematics, and it's hard to know exactly what he did. But as he explains, he says, okay, I participated in the pre-visualization, some background objects, etc. And I also know how hard it often to take pictures of your stuff, or like to take samples of a work you're doing for another company because of NDAs and things, legal things. So it's always extremely delicate. And even the screenshots that we have for the Heretic or the Wolfenstein 1 and 2, they were, I think, arranged with the legal office to be able to go in the showreel.
It's the same in visual effects.
It's a bit of a pain, yeah. So now we see a cool animation, but we don't know what
what they made, right?
Yeah, exactly. So always be specific.
Yeah, I have to say that this kind of always confuses me when I see a reel of visual effects. I mean, not that I receive any, but I'm saying when I know from LinkedIn, I look at some guy posting, I worked on the Avengers, and then the reel is like 5 seconds from the movie, right? And
what did you do?
What do I do with this? Okay, so cool, but what was exactly
and in those 5 seconds, you see the work of 100 people.
This is why I'm like, cool. So maybe I don't know if you did the animation of the guy, then maybe do the I don't know, that maybe they can't show even the play blast of just the character, right? Probably. So what do I know really? But maybe you know, Amedeo, like why it's like this? Because usually in effects,
so
I mean, in my experience, people show the whole clip and that's it.
Yeah, the problem of visual effects in my experience is, as Max said, to get anything shown, you need an approval. So by contract, you are supposed to get approval from the producer to output anything. So even being able to take a play blast without render may be a problem in certain productions.
Right, I get it.
Because if that play blast without render came out, then it could misrepresent the level of quality that the company is producing. I mean, they would say, we don't do that kind of stuff. We do the finished thing. So that's the main issue. So in practice, people have to wait for a trailer to come out to show their work. And they will show shots like this one we're seeing here. But I mean, it's very hard to know what they're doing.
Even then, can you freeze frame and outline something and say, this dude?
Yeah, in fact, normally you write in a corner, you say the dude you made. And if you included shots for context, you include them in black and white. So that your reel will still have a flow, and we can still evaluate how your animation ties in with the rest of the animation around it, but at least we know which part is yours. Having said that, in visual effects, it's not uncommon to work on a shot, and maybe you're fast, you animate pretty fast, and then you receive a shot which is half animated by someone else who left, or who's not as fast and needs some help. So your shot will become a Frankenstein of keyframes from your animation and from someone else's animation. This is especially true as you approach the deadline. So it is very difficult at a certain point to even to put that in your showreel. I mean, you put it in your showreel, and you don't really feel the ownership that much, in my opinion, when this kind of stuff happens. At the same time, however, you did the job. So I have a friend who asked his supervisor if this friend knew that his shot had been reworked to a certain degree, or it might have been. So he asked the supervisor, do I own that shot? And the supervisor said, as far as I'm concerned, this is your shot. So I mean, you can even go as far as saying, "Is it my work?" Because I don't know anymore. But this is why in all the applications we have seen in one of our previous calls, they say it needs to be a team player. Because the fact is, I mean, maybe some dude sat down here and just made the smoke, and some other person did the fire, and some did the model, and some did the animation, some did the rig, some did the breaks, some did the comp. So many to make such a big project. You need so many people, so many skills. So
but it's not just the overlapping. I mean, sorry, the roles of of course rigging and animating. It's literally that you might pick up half animation done by somebody else. Yeah, and
you
then
might have the keyframes of someone else in your shot. And I mean, in Germany, remember, we animated shots in which there were two characters, and maybe you would do one character and the other person would do the other. So now, how do you do? I split the frame.
I did the same.
Yeah, because
I put like a dark thing on the other characters.
You
but it was a bit
pixelate
shitty,
the other. You say, not that one. Look at my animation instead. But yes, I mean, you might as well have a shot in your showreel in which the animation is shared, and that's not unusual. If you do TV series, it's much less common, and if you do feature films, usually the split is between hero and crowd. And in fact, I remember on a movie before I remember I applied to work on a movie. And I knew that I had some friends working in there, and before negotiating, I asked these friends, how did the negotiation work? What can I expect? Mm-hmm. And this friend of mine told me, remember to ask to animate hero shot, because you might end up, if you don't negotiate, animating crowd depending on the situation. Uh-huh. So during the negotiation, I asked, am I going to animate hero shots, guys? And they said yes, so that once we were locked into that, I knew I would walk in and animate the characters in the foreground. And did you? Yes. And I did get the hero shots, yes. So in general, you at the time you could negotiate. I think now if you work in visual effects, you can't really negotiate, and I think it's also fair that way, because what if you come into production, you negotiate it for hero shots, and then you're not up to the standard.
I mean, you liar.
Is there somebody who would ask, "Oh, give me the crowd"? Nobody cares for shots, right?
I was in one production. I was at the stage in which I wouldn't have minded doing crowd. Okay. And in fact, when I ended up doing some crowd, I found it a relaxing job.
Which, by the way, I'm not saying that is a shit job, but
it's regarded as a second, because it's in the background, right? It's regarded as a second-class job usually. But to be honest, I found that between shots, it was a nice break to have crowds every now and then, because the amount of pressure in some production to get the shot to a certain standard is pretty high. And also, there is a very good animator, which I'm pretty sure you guys know. He's a creature animator, an Italian one, Alvise Avati.
Well, everybody knows Alvise, sure.
It's pretty famous. And I remember reading an interview from him somewhere. Alvise, by the way, he came by the Italian company, right, for a very short time. The one when you were working on the first movie in Italy, the Aspetta Giulia. Alvise, I think, joined the company for a very brief time.
But he didn't work on him.
I think I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, when I came there, I was told that Alvise passed by, but
passed by. So, oh my god, this is shit.
No, he made I saw a test of the characters.
You're right. You actually know that he probably did the animation test or something, but I don't know what didn't work. Meaning,
probably Morpai said he wasn't good enough.
And next thing you know, he was the lead animator on King Kong.
No, I think obviously we would have accepted whatever, but I think he had bigger fish to fry.
I think he had bigger plans. But there's another thing. I remember reading his interview, and in his interview he said that when he went to work on King Kong, initially he was given to animate. There were jungle shots.
Yeah, he was given to animate the wasps. Right?
Yeah,
the bat, the dragonfly, whatever it is.
And he would maybe spline shots that a supervisor blocked out. And then after a few months, he was given a shot to do from scratch. And it turned out that he wasn't ready. So he went back to the bugs. He was given bugs back. And then after a while, he could go back to the shots again. So, I mean, even for people who are in the industry, there is a learning curve. And your first shot on a movie is going to be pretty difficult because you're learning the rigs, you're learning the characters, you're learning the pipeline, and then you're still subject to very high standards. So your very first shot in a movie, it's really usually quite stressful. I mean, at least in my experience. Also, it's going to be the shot by which you're going to be measured.
Very much.
Yeah. So if you do well on your first shots, then you're only going to get better work. But if you struggle with your first shots in a company, if you're a bit laid back, then it's going to be a steep slope at the beginning to get better shots. Because and I have met some people at school who maybe wanted to have maybe the best shots on a team project or the hero assets because they thought that they deserved it. But then when they were given simple shots, they wouldn't do them because they were beneath their level.
This is the word. Then it's fucking over.
Yeah, no, in that situation in a company, you're done.
It's over. Yeah.
If you think that a shot is beneath you, then you won't be given anything because the logic is pretty stringent. In fact, the point is, if you're not able to do something simple, how can we expect you to do something complicated? I mean, if you are not even willing to do something simple.
Yeah, it's the willing part. Yeah.
Yeah. So and times and times over, I try to convince these kind of personalities to give in and try something simple before they do take the hero shot. And it's very difficult, especially in a school, to convince them. And very often in a school, you may find that the person who's doing the most important shot of a short is the one who would least deserve it because the one who doesn't want to do the simple stuff first. And from then on, you have a problem because now you are trying to lead this person to do a very good shot, which is the key shot of the movie, but this person doesn't really work that much or maybe doesn't have that experience. I wouldn't say they don't work as much. Sometimes they actually work. But they don't have the level of experience required because they haven't done the simple stuff first. So if you work in a movie, especially on your first job, you will be given the simplest stuff that you can think of.
The problem with the school is that they pay and they're there voluntarily. So the level of negotiation that they have is much higher than a simple employee in a company that is like, okay, you animate this palm bending or you're out. So I've been there. So.
Do you see it like this? Yeah. Okay. I don't have experience in school, so you guys been on both sides also.
I think that Max is making a good point. I mean, in general, in my experience with the Italian education system is that they still consider a student, even if they paid. To them, sometimes the schools are openly rude. I mean, in my experience, the university was openly rude to the students. But in this, now that the school system is a lot more organized, especially say in the UK, the students are often seen a lot as customers, and they do see themselves as customers. They are paying for a service, and they are right. I mean, if they pay for a service, they should be given tuition. So there's no doubt about that. But they mistake sometimes the tuition with the fact that they simply can't do that shot. It's just, I mean, there's no way they can do it in the time they have or with the experience they have and without doing anything before that. So Max is right. The negotiation is a bit more difficult in these situations for a tutor because, I mean, where do you draw the line? It's just a very different way of seeing school. And it makes it sometimes difficult to convince certain kind of personalities that they need to do the easy stuff first. But I mean, I try my best, and I think that the message comes across. Although, I mean, if a person is stubborn, they are stubborn. You can't do much about that. But so what were we talking about before I went on rambling?
We went full rambling, and I also lost.
So yes, I was talking about schools. Max was saying that there is a different level of negotiation. We were talking about the fact that in visual effects you don't know what people did in a showreel. Yes, and that started with Max saying that what's good about this ArtStation profile that we were watching, which I should probably link in the chat, is that you can see what the person did. So you have big projects in which it's very difficult to understand what the person did, but you also have breakdowns which tell us what the person did. And the breakdowns are so important. They're really, really important because they tell us what the person really did. I mean, if you are, imagine that you are a small company hiring people, a wrong hire may really create a hole in your pocket as a small company. It's not, I mean, it's very easy for the employee, the person who is being employed, to underestimate the weight an employee can have in a company. If a company is 5 people strong and they need to dish out, I don't know, 2-3 grants every month for someone who's not pulling their weight around, for someone who's not maybe doing the shots properly, I mean, that's every month 2-3 grants that you have to dish out. And that's going to be 20-30 grants in a year that the company is going to go into the red with. So I think it's in the interest of the company, especially if they're small, to hire people whose breakdowns are very clear. That's my opinion anyway. What do you think, Max?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to make sure you're getting the right person for the job.
Which is why in games there are so many interviews.
Oh, yeah. They do.
Because
there's an interview, there's like a test, there's like another interview to see if there's cultural fit and blah, blah, blah. It's tough.
In visual effects, the interview process is a lot shorter. And I think it's because the contracts are a lot shorter.
Yeah, the life inside the company is much shorter than...
Yeah, you may stay sometimes you may stay for 6 months tops, and maybe renewed every 2 weeks for another 2-3 months as the project
fails to meet the deadline.
Yeah, exactly, which inevitably happens, of course. So yes, it's a very different environment, and we should probably talk more about this in the future, which leads me to probably the stage in which we dish out our recommendations. What do you think? It's 7:30. So
is that the time already? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it went fast because I think we were a bit more focused today on the task at hand. Although I'm a bit sorry because we didn't see all the good stuff. I mean, Max modeled this car, which doesn't look bumpy at all.
We're skipping the best, guys.
My God, it looks like it melted under the sun. It's horrible.
I particularly like the design of the front. It looks very solid, like a one single line. I remember, Max, once I asked you, how do you know? Because you were modeling all these cars, right? And you were hiring people to model.
Well, this is not the car that got me the job back then.
No,
that's for sure.
That's for sure. But I remember I asked you, how do you know if a modeler can model a car? And you said, well, if the car model doesn't look bumpy, then you know they can model the car.
Yeah.
So can you model a car?
Back then I couldn't. Now I can. Yes.
Now you can, and in fact, in your website, the cars are all bumpless. They're all perfect.
Yes.
And in fact, once I remember you approached me asking me if I was interested in reducing polygons on models. I remember. I think.
I'm sorry, Amedeo. Do we need to bring this up during the call?
No, I mean, I found it. I opened the model and I did a bit of the job just to see what it entails. It wasn't really my cup of tea. I could do it, but I found it boring. But I was quite impressed by the rationality of the edge flow in there. I thought they were very well optimized. I was actually quite surprised that with so few polygons you could make such detailed models. And this is some sort of compliment.
Bikes. I think the orange one that you have in the middle over there, it's like 50,000 polygons. I wish I had wireframes because it's crazily optimized.
Yeah, that was what really impressed me about these models. They if you don't pay attention, you don't even realize how optimized they are, because they look high res, but they're not, right? I mean, you can spot in the wheels some of the edges, but it's really well optimized. So this is how Max started.
This was the beginning of my career as 3D artist. Yes.
I don't know what this is.
I don't know. I probably had some problems. I should have talked with a psychiatrist back then, but I didn't.
Yeah. If you applied with this image, they would refer you to a specialist.
Probably yes. I don't know. I probably found a plugin to do fur, and this is the first thing that came to my mind.
Sure. Literally the first thing.
Yeah.
I would have modeled the same. And this is something that plugs into your interests, I take.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about Berserk.
Miura,
Miura a couple of weeks ago because he died, unfortunately. And back then, I think 20 years ago, I was reading the comic and I was so into it. I did sculptures, I did miniatures.
Huge, yes.
It was huge. So, yes, I tried to do 3D stuff.
Yes, the helmet, famous.
The helmet, the sword. Yeah, you can see the steps here, still decent. I didn't know what smoothing groups were, clearly. But I knew what a lens flare was, bitches.
Oh
my god, that lens flare! I was about to say, it's
such a nice touch.
Really brings me back. It was already bad by back then.
I mean, these lens flares, yes, they were already considered a bad touch, but I couldn't resist myself. You know that there is a French movie, I think it's called Dragon's Lair, in which there's a character which is called Sir Lens Flare.
Oh my god, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember now. It's not Dragon's Lair. It's something with the dragons. It's an old French 3D movie. And at a certain point, there is this character whose name is Sir Lens Flare, which is, of course, taking a piece of lens flares and visual effects. But I don't. It's not a very.
It's probably
Lance
with Lance, like Lancelot.
Sir Lens Flare. Lance, let's see. No, I can't.
No.
I should have
not even Google.
Not even Google knows what I'm talking about in here. But I think one way to look at it is also I think if you do fan art, that's a good start as well. Because you can get some of the design, especially if you're not good in design, you can find support in the existing designs. And you also very often have different views of a model. So I think it makes it a bit easier to start modeling.
Fan art is great. Like it gets you visibility because more people are interested in the thing you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that...
And you like it because you want to do the stuff that you like. So yeah, it made me feel like I was doing something professional because it was like a pop culture thing. I don't know.
Like the real deal.
Yeah.
And
Miura would have been proud of him then.
For sure. I think it's a really good start to do fan art. And as Daniele says, it gives you visibility, especially if it's good. Because if you make, I don't know, an animation piece with the Last Airbender on it, then Google is going to find it a lot more easier than if you did a martial art 3D body mechanics
generic
shot.
view, yes, yeah.
So absolutely. a lot easier. Now, to conclude this call, one thing that I would like to recommend is a TV series, a Japanese TV series, an anime. The English title is Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. It's a great TV series. It's a great animation movie about 3 girls who decide to make anime, and there is one who wants to do a director, one who wants to be the talented artist and animator and concept artist, and then there is the producer, which is the tall character, which is interested in making money out of it. So the producer is always bringing down to reality the animator and the director. The director always wants to do the most complex thing ever, and the producer is always saying, yes, in which time are you going to do that? And with which resources?
The style is great.
This is very, very cute idea, actually.
Yeah, the style is great. The problems are real. These are
real problems.
They are real problems, and they are framed in a very amusing way. So, and it's just a very short series, so I wouldn't recommend it probably otherwise. Although one day, I will probably recommend a much longer series of 70 episodes or so. But today, this is a lot of fun. It goes very quickly. I think the director of animation was actually a Westerner from Spain, I think.
Right.
Although the author is Sumito Owara, he's a Japanese guy, and the director per se is I think Masaaki Yuasa. And they probably don't say anything to you as names. They are quite followed, but I got to know them only through this anime. You should really watch it. It's a lot of fun. The style is a bit different than as usual, and it shows you the complexities and the fun and the pains of doing animation. And every now and then it sprinkles some animation principles, but never in a fashion that makes you think you are in a class. You actually watch it for the story. You almost never watch it for the animation part. Although when you see the animation part, you think, oh, of course. It's really a great series. So watch it. I really suggest it.
Sounds really nice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, there is in the chat there is Jupz, which reminds me that the movie I was talking about is Dragon Hunters. Yes, thank you very much. Now I know I'm not the only one out there. Which Dragon Hunters actually had some very good style. I think it was animated by the company which is now Animation McGuff. I'm not quite sure, but I think it might have been that. And lens flare. Let's see if it's there. I guess it's this guy, but I don't remember if it's... There's always a flare in there. But I remember the first time it appears, it's just made of lens flares. There's lens flares everywhere. But yeah, thank you very much to Jupz. Finally, somebody who understands me. Then Daniele and Max, any suggestion for the closure?
Yeah, go ahead, Daniele.
Okay, for today, I thought to show like this. Maybe, I'm not saying old game. It's been, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or something like this. Is Inside from Playdead, the same guys that did Limbo. I don't know. It's just a short game that, in my opinion, really hits the spot. It's a very nicely told story, and I would recommend it for the animation because it's very simple but very well done. And I don't know. It really puts you in the mood of the whole story, which is. Can't say much for spoilers, of course, but it's a story very open to different interpretations, let's say. Like
yeah,
this.
And you can also play in a few different ways, in my opinion. I mean, you could just steam forward, or you can think about a couple of situations and take another route, and that will affect, of course, the endings. So without spoiling too much.
Do you actually play a game, Amedeo?
I do play it.
This game has no cinematics. How did you manage?
This game is a cinematic in itself. Can you see it? I mean, the atmosphere is so great. And I think one thing that the guys from Playdead really taught us is that you don't need to make things super high-end in terms of CG to make a good game.
No. It's just a very, very well done package in all aspects, you know. And
yeah. You might know the guys from Limbo. I mean, if you remember Limbo, and was Limbo their first 3D?
Well, I don't know if it was the first, but it's the one that made them famous, yes.
Yeah, and Limbo was essentially silhouettes and fog.
Yeah.
So in terms of...
Which also taps into animation, if you want to see it.
Yeah. And if you think of it, this way they don't have to do any lighting, or rather, they have to do very simplified lighting. They don't have to do any texturing. Not bad. I mean... half of the work is gone, and you can focus on gameplay,
you can actually focus
story,
on the game, yes,
on the situations. So I think where a lot of companies feel compelled to invest is the quality of the assets. I mean, if you do a Call of Duty, you kind of have to do super complex assets, I think. But really, a game can be really good with very little, and I think that's why I liked Inside. I played both Limbo and Inside. I think Inside dared a bit more, as in there's a red shirt there. So,
yes, right. So let's put a color in the home.
Yeah, one though. It's a bit more atmospheric Inside, as there is more depth in the scene. Sure. And I liked it more. I think it's more refined in terms of... It's a bit less cruel. I think Limbo was a bit more cruel as a game. Inside is a bit more playful, in my opinion. But I like them both. I really like them. And then Max, your suggestion?
Yeah, my suggestion is a board game called Azul. Came out some 4 years ago, I think, and it won like shitloads of prizes. It's an extremely elegant game, elegant both in the way it plays and in the display. It's basically this game where it's good to play with 2 or 3 people. So if you are a couple, you can go and buy it. If you have like a few friends that you can invite over, just go for it. It's a game that you can explain in literally 10 minutes. You basically distribute these very pretty plastic tiles, and each player can pick them up from the central pool and basically distribute them in those grids that they have to match colors. And as you take tiles, you limit the possibility of other players to score points. So it's a game where you can make a lot of enemies very quickly. And it's an extremely approachable game. All ages, probably from 8 years up, you can play this game. And yeah, it was an instant success because it's just great. I usually like games where there's a little bit more aesthetic and flavor to it, like monster, dragons, robots, and miniatures and stuff. But this is so elegant and it's so good.
Is the setup quick? I mean,
the setup takes 30 seconds top.
Nice.
Yeah. If you want to just play a match after dinner, you pull it out and you can play like in no time. And matches are like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So definitely you could call it casual because it's easy to learn, but there's a lot of depth and it's like play cards.
It's very difficult for me to understand board games from outside. I think you really need to play them to understand what they're about. And one of the obstacles I always find is that maybe the setup takes forever.
Yes.
Or maybe sometimes if you want to play a game like Diplomacy, you have to invest. Have you ever heard of it? You have to invest something like 7 hours.
Yes.
And I really wanted to play it, and I found it secondhand. But then I realized that I will never find the people to play it with.
Right.
Because
that's why people play online or play by email.
Yeah, I think so. Because in a room, 7 people, 7 hours. I mean, how many chances?
Very few.
Very few. So that was it. Of course, we're not affiliates, so these are just maybe one day, but these are just our recommendations. I hope you enjoyed the evening with us. I certainly enjoyed this talk. And Daniele has switched on the light.
Yes.
So I think it's time to go prepare dinner. So thank you all very much for joining us. If you like this thing, like and subscribe. This will help us because, of course, it makes it easier for us to go on.
Hit that like button, please.
Wherever that is, guys, because I don't know where that is.
There
Find
is
it out.
No like on Twitch, but then at least follow. Right?
Follow us on Twitch. Whichever, guys. Click whichever button moves on the screen. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Ciao.